Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. And today my guest is Lynn Whitbeck, and she has a company called Petite to Queen, and the company deals with how to do great sales. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's bring Lynn on. Hey, Lynn, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Josh. How about you?
Thanks. I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Let's talk about sales a little bit when it comes to construction companies. What is the biggest problem that you think construction companies make in the sales process?
Well, I think with anyone in the sales process, there's a couple of different things. The first one is really mapping out your sales strategy so you understand, your client journey through the process and you apply client thinking all the way through that process and through their journey. And when you start there and you really refresh what you're doing it from the client's perspective, because after all, they drive the decision. They make the decision, and you are guiding them to that decision to work with you. And so when you really put that in a framework so that you can follow that through, that helps your entire team know where they're at, what's next, and what they need to do, right? And it also is putting things in the frame. Let's think of our 2x4 frame or on the foundation so that you have the solid foundation to build that client relationship on top of. And when you think like the client, you are putting things in a way that makes sense to them, that it clicks with them, that you can connect with them. You can attract, connect, and then convert far easier because you're framing it in a perspective that matches how they view things. And it also enables you then to do the things that you need to in outreach and in follow up so that you can follow up along the way and along that client journey to guide them to a decision to moving forward with you. And then of course, you're going to be nurturing that opportunity that with that client, implementing, building the building, working with them through all of that whole experience, making it a delightful client experience. So not only will they work with you again, that repeat business, but also provide you with referrals, which will then build your business much quicker and easier with a shorter sales cycle.
When you say frame, what do you mean by frame?
When you frame your thinking around what the client looks like. So what you want to do is start with what does the client want, need, or lack? Why does it matter to them? How's it going to benefit them so they can? And of course, the so they can be that they can get a building put up, right, for a new business. But there's a lot more that goes into it. There could be different types of motivations, especially if you niche down into your market. Maybe you really specialize in eco construction, or the environmentally friendly construction, and the different ways that you put that in place, and how you can then convey that to your client, not only how it's going to benefit and impact the community and the world, but how it's going to be a reflection on them as an organization, why it's not going to cost them any more money, but instead it's actually going to be a long-term, fruitful investment. So that's just one niche that you could really tie into the client why that's driving them, and their thinking, so that you can then match that up to push forward into that proposal and then closing that proposal, guiding them to a decision so you can start implementing the project.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, a frame is what the customer thinks and feels. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, so the frame is the client thinking. That's really your underlying basis or the foundation of everything that you're going to put together. So maybe instead of a frame, it's the foundation, but it is a frame in the sense of how you look at it, the lens that you use, that you're always trying to think like the client, and what's from their perspective, how does this come across? And when you're doing that, you need to tie into what motivates them. What are their emotions that are associated with that, so that you can tap into that. because we're human beings, right? And our emotions do impact and influence our decisions. Every decision is an emotional decision on some level. So you want to tap into that client thinking and what their motivations and emotions that come with that thinking so that you can make those connections more quickly.
Well, it sounds to me like you're sort of thinking about niche management. Am I correct in that?
Uh, to some extent, but for every construction company, in essence, there is some type of niche that they're performing. You could be doing residential construction, but that residential construction could vary wildly from single family homes to duplexes to small condominium projects. But then you get into somebody who does build apartment buildings and bigger condos, things like that. That's more of a specific market. You get people who are build factories or build hospitals. Hospitals have certainly highly specialized electronic needs, etc. So when you go through, it's really from that broader perspective. But when you tie it in, if you, let's say you do build big industrial facilities, especially for either hospitals or anybody with high tech requirements, then once again, what are they thinking through? What do they want, need, or lack? Why does it matter to them? So they need to know that every piece of equipment, if we're talking about a hospital, they're going to be able to plug and play and it's going to work and they're not going to blow fuses or something, right? That it's going to have the type of sanitary, easy to access, easy to clean type of bigger picture that goes into it. And it's not just the core construction, which I'm sure there's a lot of different concerns that you have to have there with some of the materials that you might use that can take, regular, even though it's on a surface level, cleaning products can seep down, etc. There's and I'm not an expert on this, okay? So I'm just really just sort
Okay,
of
so
go with me here.
let's change topics for a second. Here's a problem I see with almost every construction company I've ever run across. They don't know what the word follow-up means.
Okay. Well, the fortune's in the follow up, and you absolutely have to follow up. And I want to, there's some really statistics that you need to hear, and that is that you're not alone, first of all. The statistics around this are really quite shocking. At least 42% of professional salespeople never make a single follow up attempt. Okay, never. And that's two, and at 48% that people don't make a second follow-up attempt, so they tried once and then they throw in the towel. And it's something like 92% give up after the fourth attempt. And yet, in the B2B world, which construction primarily is, unless you're building single private homes for families, um, in the B2B world, that is, you're not going to make it because B2B sales occur after the fifth, seventh, or 10th follow up, right? So you need to have a follow up strategy. And part of that follow up strategy is delivering things that answer the client why. What are their top 10 questions? What are their top 10 pain points? What are their top 10 objections? And how can you answer those? Now, I don't mean you have to create 30 pieces of content. No, but you do need to pick out those top items and create content around that you can continuously deliver to answer that question when you follow up. And then you lead with the value and you mix up how you're delivering that. It can be by email, it can be by snail mail, it can be by text, it can be by phone call, which is most likely a voicemail. There's a lot of different methods. You can use messaging, on all the different social platforms. So, and different clients will respond to different things. And sometimes things that aren't normally a place where they would respond to, they'll see the message there and you'll get a response. But when you lead with that value every time, you're actually moving the conversation forward so that at one point they actually pick up that phone or they accept that meeting invite. Because that's actually step 12 of my own personal cadence, is just literally sending a meeting invite for a virtual coffee or a virtual lunch. and people accept it because I've been delivering value all the way along the line. And so it's like, okay, I need to talk to you. I want to talk to you. Let's do this. I got to have coffee or I got to have lunch, right? And then you get that you get to make that connection. But when you deliver value all the way through, it also is telling them what it's going to be like to work with you, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, that
So
makes
it's
sense.
yeah.
So there's a an agency that works with HubSpot. Um, People called Marcus Buckingham is the guy that owns the agency. He used to own a pool company, and he's got this great little strategy. He says they ask, we answer. And in that, what he does is he gets the top 10 questions that he hears or his pool salespeople heard, and he made a 20-minute video. And before he would send a salesperson out, he would make sure that the potential client, customer, had watched the video. And two things happened from that. One is they had a more informed customer, and two, they had a more qualified customer because someone's going to sit through a 20-minute video and get their questions answered, will be more knowledgeable when the salesperson goes out. So the salespeople weren't wasting their time making stupid calls. Have you ever used a strategy like that with any of the people you work with? Lynn, are you there? Or have you frozen? It appears like Lynn has frozen, and hopefully she will return soon, but I'm just going to continue talking for a little while. And we're probably going to have to redo this podcast at some point in the future. But the truth is, when it comes to people working in contracting companies, when you have somebody who is not especially informed but has questions, answer the questions. And some of the questions are really kind of stupid. Like my favorite question I like to have, especially home remodelers, answer is, what is your process for keeping the property clean? What is your process for keeping the house clean? Because I can tell you that almost everybody I've ever talked to has had this issue where they, oops, Lynn is back, so we're going to probably reschedule this. Okay, so we bring you in. If I can figure out how to do this, we'll add you to, right there we are. We'll put you on the left this time. Lynn, I think we're
Yes.
going to have to
Hi.
reschedule. We're going to have to reschedule because you froze and disappeared, and we'll have to redo this. So I'm going to stop the live stream and stop recording, and we can set another time.
Okay. No, I am so sorry. I have no idea.